Welcome back to another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch, the podcast where two guys watch random things and then talk about it on the internet. With me this episode and every episode is the Slender Man to my Bye-Bye Man, Kyle Mulford, and I'm Noah Saturn.
I am rather slender.
Truly.
So, what did we watch this week?
This week we watched a film, a motion picture you might say, called Splatter University.
It was a motion picture. I believe it was theatrically released.
From 1984, I think?
Yes, 1984. I think it was originally filmed in 1981, and the original length was 65 minutes. And when the director was pitching it to distributors, they said that they needed an 80-minute running time to get it in theaters. So they gave them ideas on what they could add to the movie, and then he filmed a few extra scenes and put them in, and the rest is history.
Interesting.
This was directed by Richard W. Haynes, and it was produced by Richard W. Haynes, and it was written by Richard W. Haynes, and he also edited the film, and one actor didn't show up, so he also was in one scene as a priest.
Nice.
He is a multi-talented man.
He is a triple threat. I mean, that makes sense with a lot of, especially with a lot of lower budget independent films. I mean, a prime example is probably like El Mariachi, where it was just Robert Rodriguez.
Yes, yeah. And it's a start, and he worked for Troma for a while, and that's why he was able to he licensed them to distribute the movie to theaters, and then he got the rights back in like 1986 or something like that.
That's cool.
And yeah, so he worked on Troma, which is known for, they started in the mid to late 70s doing like raunchy sex movies, kind of sexploitation, and then they moved into like more just regular like splatter, kind of exploitation films like Toxic Avenger. And actually Class of Nuke 'Em High is one of the most well-known ones, and that was also co-directed by this same director, Richard Haynes.
Yeah, I know some people like to look down upon Troma, but they've been probably one of the best independent producers and independent groups for a very long time. And even, a lot of directors and a lot of actually pretty solid industry people work there. So if you ever actually get a job at Troma, it's actually a good starting point.
It's a lot like Roger Corman. Troma started a lot of not started a lot of careers, but they had distributed or made movies of a lot of big stars that you know now. Some of their first movies were in Troma movies, kind of like a lot of people started in Corman movies, which I think Corman had a lot more of the bigger stars in Hollywood that, like Jack Nicholson was in The Terror, and he may have been in another one or two Roger Corman movies. Sylvester Stallone in Death Race 2000. So yeah, Corman and then Lloyd Kaufman with his Troma Pictures, his Troma Studios or whatever he calls it. They were good career starters for a lot of people, and they're good proponents for independent movies.
Oh yeah, and they're both definitely still around. And I know Lloyd Kaufman has actually written a series of books. Most recently, he's been so the books are called, I believe it's like Make Your Own Damn Movie.
Okay.
It's actually one of the best film resources out there, but it's also one of the funniest film resources out there, because he talks about a lot of their just weird experiences of just stuff you'll have to deal with, and how to do things cheap, and it even goes through the whole Troma presentation of what it's like to be there at Sundance as someone who's working small, as opposed to some of the big stars that also go to Sundance.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I wonder if he's written a book now to get more money, because I don't think that Troma's doing well financially. They don't get a lot of return on their movies. But their movies are also very cheaply made. This movie was 1984, filmed in 81, but it was filmed on 16 millimeter for $25,000. And it was filmed at a Mercy College in Yorktown, New York. And they thought the college said that they could have 2 weeks to film. They changed their minds and gave them 1 week. And apparently the effects guys were like the youngest guys on the crew, and one of them was still in high school. So like the actual gore effects and everything, and one of them was a high schooler working on those.
I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, that's where a lot of people get their starts. I mean, I'm sure everybody's got to start somewhere. Even some of the more famous effects guys like Rick Baker and Tom Savini are sort of the two big ones I can think of. I mean,
Hey,
everybody's got to start
even if you
somewhere.
started on Troma, that's better than the high school productions that I put together in, when I was younger. I wasn't working for no studio, so they're already a step ahead of me.
There are actually some industry people who are kind of more some industry higher ups that Troma actually has a pretty solid following just because they know the work ethic or they worked at Troma. So because it's actually a relatively well respected name within the industry.
Okay, so with all that being said, what's this movie about?
Well, you see, there's a university, and then they decide to play a giant game of paintball
And they splattered it all over the walls.
all over the wall.
Well,
And that's the entire movie right there. It's just
I thought
one
that was
epic game.
Gotcha with Anthony Edwards.
No, that was a Community episode, but
Have you not seen Gotcha?
I don't think I have.
There was I think it was an 80s movie with Anthony Edwards where there was I don't remember if it was like a campus wide thing or if it was him and his friends. I believe they had paintball guns, and when they saw each other out, they'd be like looking for each other on campus in between classes and shoot each other. Like if whoever sees them first would shoot them, say gotcha, and then they get away. Well, then it turned into like this real life spy thing, and I vaguely remember it. I haven't seen it since it came out in the 80s, but I just remember it was like a paintball war type thing with Anthony Edwards.
Huh.
So I don't know if this was before or after Revenge of the Nerds.
I assume it was after his work on ER.
He went back to college after ER.
Yep.
But okay, I just kind of digressed there. So so we open up with a mental asylum, and I loved the lower thirds on this. The little paranoid schizophrenic missing 2:43 p.m. William Graham. It's like they're basically just putting up on the screen what's going on.
Yeah.
Then we go into like a room, and there's the doctors talking in the hallway about, oh, this patient got out, blah blah blah. We don't know where he is, and then they go into a room, and it's the most stereotypical mental patient like type thing. Like it's like Three Stooges University. There's literally one guy like poking the eyes of the doll, and then pokes himself in the eyes. And you really can't see that on the podcast, but
He was my favorite. He was my favorite part of that mental asylum scene. I was half expecting Nurse Ratched to show up and just say it was medication time.
And then the Indian throws something through the window and runs away.
Exactly.
No, it was very stereotypical, like just goofy mental asylum. And then we never actually see the face of the killer. So because obviously it just shows like his chest down, because obviously we're trying to figure out who it is the whole movie. And he doesn't wear a mask like most killers in these movies, in these old slashers.
It's one of those whodunit slasher movies as opposed to something like, especially in like the later series of something like Freddy and Nightmare on Elm Street, and then of course Friday the 13th, where you know who the killer is, and he's kind of the hero, I guess, but he's the most recognizable character from the franchise.
I was doing a little, like, just looking up as much as I could on this movie, which it's hard to find anything on this movie because it's a 1984 Troma movie that isn't one of their popular, and actually it was only distributed by Troma, so it's not even actually a Troma movie. But the beginning where the killer escapes the hospital, one of the doctors is looking for him, and he goes into a closet, and I did read one review, and it was great. He opens the closet of brooms and knives, and gets stabbed in the penis. So that's our opening kill, is a stab to the penis.
And for a slasher movie, there really isn't that much slashing.
It was more stabbing.
Well, just even there, it seems very sparsed out.
At least they put it, like, instead of like going a long time without anything, like there would be stretches, but at least they put it throughout the movie. I mean, like the first kill is within the first 5-10 minutes of the movie, because it's only 118 minutes long. So
yeah, it's an hour and 18 minutes, so that's it's 78 minutes.
So the killer escapes, and then we get the credits, Splatter University, and whatever. And we cut to St. Trinian's College 3 years later. And this guy likes, privates, I guess, because you see a professor at this university, and she opens the door. She thinks it's her boyfriend or whatever, Mark, and she opens the door and gets stabbed in the boob, and then Todd instantly dies.
He really enjoys stabbing in specific places.
He really does. He was diverse. Like, I don't think there was any two stabs that were in the same body part in this whole movie.
That's true.
There was a penis, a boob, a stomach, one person stabbed in the mouth.
The mouth was great, and then we'll get there. But then there was someone in the back, so just to cover everything. I was just there should have been like a foot.
We could have had more kills. So the professor getting killed was just 3 years after the guy escaped, and then that was just setting up for the actual plot of the movie. So then we go to St. Trinian's College the next semester, yesterday. And yes, it actually said yesterday. What? I mean, why?
I don't know. I know some movies just say something like this to present day.
Yeah.
Maybe saying yesterday was a way to distinguish it, or it's just whatever. I don't know. Seems like some of the time titles occasionally would be like 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later. It's like it gets a little confusing. I mean, most of the times you can figure out that time has passed just by indication of looks like the seasons changed, characters are wearing different outfits, stuff like that. You don't necessarily need to specifically say this time such and such. I mean, it's not like an episode of 24 or an episode of like SVU or something where they're always very specific on what day. Exactly.
6:37 a.m. Although they did get specific with 2:43 p.m. at the paranoid schizophrenic was missing.
Yeah, but then there's no time cues after that, so I'm kind of disappointed.
Then there was just yesterday. So I did notice right away, I got to say right away, the dialogue in this movie is atrocious to the point of just being severely entertaining. Two college students walking down the hallway. Okay, after we get to the main, like yesterday, two college students going down, and one kid says, he said something to the other one, and his reply was, stupid teacher got killed. What a pain in the ass. And that's the kind of disregard you have for death in this whole movie. And every male in this movie is a complete asshole.
That's true. There are no good men in this movie. They're all just jerks or whatever.
You're waiting for all of them to die.
I don't know. The one good guy, at least that I liked, was probably the drunk guy in the leather jacket. But we'll get to him later.
The beer stealing?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I did like that guy because he was very quiet and just.
That's my favorite part of the whole movie. Like, why can't this movie be about him?
I would like to see a spinoff. But we get a new teacher, and this is our main protagonist, Miss Parker, played by Forbes Riley. That means anything to you? I don't know if she had a career after this. But she actually was okay in this movie. Like she wasn't a good actress, but like she was likable, and it was fine to follow her, and follow her story.
All of her reactions did seem kind of natural enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard there's options of casting non-actors in your movie because non-actors, sometimes they're better for certain roles just because they just kind of react to stuff. And sometimes that's what you want.
Yeah. But she finds an apartment. And this was I love the landlady. I don't remember the landlady's name in this movie, but her also nonchalant about murderers because she's talking to her and saying, not many people stick around here because of all the kooks running around killing people that they don't even know. If you're going to kill someone, you at least know them real well. And then she goes into a spiel about old Mrs. So-and-so said she wanted to get rid of her husband, so she put poison in his drink, and he drank it, he died, and it was real simple, and it was, it's just quick and done. It was very nonchalant about death in this movie.
At that point, I just put in my notes, landlord is the killer. I'm sure of it.
I will say that you're pretty sure about who the killer was the whole movie, but they do have a lot of red herrings, and they at least try. I actually saw a couple of reviews going, yeah, this is so lazy they didn't even try it. I'm going, no, they tried to put so many red herrings in this movie. I mean, there was the landlady was just kind of nonchalant. I think she was just there for comic relief.
Yeah, she wasn't supposed to be one.
She wasn't even supposed to be a red herring. She was just kind of weird.
Let's see. Yeah, there were a couple of false leads here and there, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, it was still, you could tell it was an early work by someone, but at least they tried. So after she gets her apartment, then we cut to, okay, some of the stuff that he added for this movie, apparently most of this movie when he had the 65-minute cut was all just the Miss Parker and her storyline. And so a lot of the stuff that he added was their suggestion was to add Porky's type humor for the target demographic. So he put in all this college student stuff with the kids at the bar and all that kind of stuff, the intermingling of the college students in there. So and I'm actually kind of glad they did, because I read that he's talked about putting this movie on Blu-ray with the 65-minute cut. And I'm sure that's great because it's his director's cut. It's how he wanted the movie. But without the college students with their bad dialogue, this movie would not be as entertaining.
That's fair.
Because we get out into a parking lot, and we've got one dude that he just howls and barks at people.
Yeah. He's like the cartoon wolf from the old Tex Avery cartoon in human form. Except I was just waiting for his eyes to pop out and then his tongue to go flap around. It didn't happen.
No. And another thing, it made sense after reading that he added this kind of stuff, because if you also notice, most of the movie, it's got a very synth early 80s horror vibe to it, which it was actually okay. The score was okay, but all of the college scenes had rock music, it was just a typical. It almost felt like high schoolers, not college.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. These are written 1950s high school shenanigans.
Like American
kids.
Graffiti outside, the small dive bar, going to the drive-in,
doing all this fun kiddie stuff,
hanging out in the parking lot, I don't know. Yeah, it totally felt like high school stuff.
I mean, if it was American Graffiti, then one of them would have been Harrison Ford, which would have improved this movie vastly. But I think he might have been too expensive in 1981 after just finishing Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. We go to the teacher is, you find out that she sucks as teaching. I think she's just a first-time teacher, and she can't control her class and everything. But here's what I found interesting. She's teaching a sociology class, and she is trying to get the students to bring up a subject that they would like to talk about and discuss. And so our favorite character, he looks at someone else's desk and says, "How about abortion?" And I was like, wow, they're going to bring up abortion in this, huh? And then she brings up, well, there's a problem. Then we get into the discussion of separation of church and state, and it's set in a Christian school. And I was like, wow, that's kind of progressive to talk about this. But then the whole rest of the movie, all the men are assholes, and it's the women who get killed. And it's very misogynistic.
Yeah.
It's just got this little blurb in there that's for, the separation of church and state and all this stuff, and women's, what to do, what women can do with their own bodies and all this stuff. They have a little bit in there, but then it's let's murder all the women, though.
So what you're saying is that it's not necessarily as progressive or as interesting as you thought. And also, this is a Catholic college because all of the staff and administrators are priests.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I said Christian, didn't I? Yes, it's a Catholic school. They're called St. Trinians, they called it. Well, as we know from the lower thirds, straight St. Trinians the next semester yesterday. So yeah, you think it's going to be a little progressive, but no, it's very misogynistic, the rest of the movie.
Oh, yeah. And also, another sort of repeating thing is there's these, in a horror movie, they have a lot of kind of fake out scares, where you see a hand coming behind someone, and then there's just they touch them on the shoulder, the person turns around, and of course, it's their friend or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I like the scene in Halloween where there's just heavy breathing on the telephone, and it's just her friend eating popcorn while on the phone. And then this movie has a lot of that, but for some reason it's almost always a knock at the door. And it's never the killer. It's always just someone. It's always just a person. Normally it's Mark. It's almost always Mark whenever there's a knock at the door.
Yes. And he's your other red herring, although that's a spoiler that's calling him a red herring, I guess. He's your biggest red herring in this movie.
That's true.
And then you find out Miss Parker seems to have a crush on what I call the discount Scott Baio. He looked a little like Scott Baio in some scenes.
Was he in charge?
or is Scott Baio the discount Rick Rendick? I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Oh, but I actually like, speaking of those little fake out scares, I liked the one where the guy was making out with the girl, and then his girlfriend comes in, and then he's sitting in between both of them, like putting his arms around both of them, and then like a friend comes up the fire escape and jumps in with pantyhose on his face. Ah! He's like, hey, let's go drinking. It was like, the reaction was great because they cut, like, it was just a jump cut to one girl going, ah! Another girl going, ah! And then cuts to the boy going, ah! Just like, very, very jump cutty to each one of them.
There was a bit of an awkward pause there for some reason. I don't know why. There might have just been a few frames off where it felt like there was just a little bit of a delayed reaction in that scene.
And then between each one of them, it was like a delayed like 3 times there. But I just loved that reaction of all 3 of them.
Also, I kind of want that little scene, and then the guy jumping and taking his mask off, saying like, "Let's party!" I want that in like just as a reaction GIF, so I could just like send to someone in a text message for no reason.
No one's going to know where that came from other than me. And this scene was also, and I'm going to bring up a lot of dialogue in this because it's so great. I wrote a lot of it down. This was an exchange here. The girl says, they're going at it. And the girl says, do you have a thing? Of course. What do you think? I am a eunuch? No, a thing. What, a rubber band or a prophylactilator? I'm sorry, I just found that amusing.
Talking about a condom, but apparently he's been wearing this condom for an hour.
I've had that on. I just love it. A rubber band or a prophylactilator. I've been wearing this since I got here. Oh, so then that leads to that jump scare, which my notes say funny, awful reactions.
Can we stop for a moment to talk about? I know the girls are like, there's Kathy and Denise, I think, are the 2 girls.
Yeah.
And then Tommy is the boy, I believe. Can we just talk about Denise has some of the best like 1980 something perm ever.
Very tall hair, very permed. It's the epitome of 80s hair for women, I think.
Early 80s hair was just great.
A lot of hairspray in there.
And maybe a few like birds nested in there at some point. It's very tall.
Very tall. With the bulbous bouffant. Oh, you don't know that one.
I can't say I do.
Look it up. We get Miss Parker going to the teacher's office because he didn't like her talk about the separation of church and state because she was sent to the office right after that. But then we cut to that other scene, and now we're back to her going to his office.
Is this kind of like the principal or like the dean of students? Because this is like a university or a college. You think they'd have like maybe it's just like the department head or something?
I feel like he's like the head priest of the school. I think he's got like the dean role for the college. He seemed to be in charge of pretty much everyone.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, maybe you go to the dean for a few things, but normally, I guess depending on the size of the school or even in most colleges, I was wondering what the administrative structure of this school was like during this movie, and I'm not sure why.
Now, the actual school or the Splatter University school?
Yeah, St. Trinian's or whatever college is called.
Yeah.
And then at one point they call it a university. So which is it?
I don't know. Well, anyway, he's in a wheelchair and his legs start shaking and he just calls it a spasm. And that's about the point where you go, he's the killer, isn't he?
Either that or he's going to have like a Dr. Strangelove moment at the end where he just goes, Mind Viewer! I can walk!
I can walk. Oh, wait, we do have a moment like that.
We'll get to that later.
We'll get to that. So yeah, that's where you get the first suspicions of him, and yeah, spoilers. You're right.
Then there was the other weird subplot that was kind of mentioned, where it looked like apparently, according to the students, like one priest and then one teacher, they were just kind of like having a secret affair or
That went
something.
nowhere.
And that was just mentioned a couple times. We saw like two of them go into a room.
Yeah.
That was it. And this guy was named like Father Williams or something. And he looked like a discount Christopher Lee to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. He was on screen so little. That whole storyline went nowhere, and I'm not sure why it was there. Was it just because it was priests, so they had to show them molesting young people? I don't know.
I don't know.
But so this cuts back and forth a lot, and that's another reason, a way you could tell that like the student stuff was added in, because it's like he kind of just interspersed it here and there, just like, oh, I got to put it somewhere, we'll put it here. So we go to the office, and then we go to a bar scene, and this is where our favorite guy is in the background.
So there's all these, kids doing stuff or whatever. And then one of them is she's the quote unquote good girl of the group. She doesn't really want to do anything. She's got Tommy, the grumpy boyfriend, and all of his dude bros. And then there's Denise, the perm lady, and who's kind of into Tommy or whatever. And then earlier there was a scene about them having to maybe trying to get together behind this other girl's back. So then they go to this bar, and then I don't know, the structure. I mean, was it kind of like the bar in Cheers, where you could have people on both sides of the bar? Because it was kind of hard to tell.
I couldn't tell if it was that or if that was just a really big table that they were at. I don't know. The camera angle was weird, and because they were trying to show everybody in a one shot, so I don't know. They all fit around the table and were able to talk to each other.
I do like the scene where they walk into this bar, and then like there's a guy in the back against the wall. It just looks like he's wearing like maybe like a homeless person just sitting in the back, and then later when a character leaves the bar, he's still there, and he just kind of slowly slides down into like some sort of drunken stupor. And then of course then there's the leather jacket guy, who was clearly the best character in the scene.
Oh yeah, because who was it? Was it Tommy that was drinking the beer, and his girlfriend runs off, and he's like, I'm not leaving until I finish my beer. And we had earlier seen the leather jacket guy reach over his shoulder while he wasn't looking, drink the whole thing, and set it back down. So he lifts up his glass, it's empty. So he moves over to the next chair over and drinks his girlfriend's beer, who just ran away. So, and meanwhile, she's out in the parking lot getting killed.
Yeah, so then she gets killed in the parking lot, and then I guess everyone else decides to leave, and they go out and do something, and then they have like another beer or something in the parking lot.
And it's skunky beer.
And it's skunky beer, they don't like it, so then they pass it away. So I guess then just after drinking, he's going straight to drive, so that's cool. But anyway, and then when they're throwing their cans of beer or whatever that they don't like, I think my said was actually ginger ale or something, and so they throw it away into this dumpster, and then this poor woman's body is also in the dumpster, and then you're just like, was this ever discovered?
I don't think so. They threw beer cans at her and drove away.
And I'm sure they talked about it. They're like, maybe if it was like a very easy way, it would have been like you just see someone looking at a newspaper that say like body found in dumpster or something, but it was never really quite referred to again.
No, Tommy never even talked about his girlfriend was dead. I didn't even realize that. Oh my God. That
was a little weird to me. I might just be trying to overanalyze something and finding looking at a plot hole that probably isn't there.
Yeah.
But that just seemed kind of funny to me.
Well, but maybe because maybe they do discuss it in a minute. We got to after that we go to Miss Parker going out with Discount Scott Baio and going out to dinner. So that's establishing that they're starting to date a little. And then we cut to 3 weeks later. So 3 weeks later from yesterday, so maybe in those 3 weeks they discussed Tommy got sad about his girlfriend, and he went and got counseling, and then got better. And they got better. So now we're 3 weeks later, and Kathy is pregnant. And
I just want to point out that there was also another brief scene with our favorite landlady, Mrs. Whatever, and then she talks about how, I got some mail, it came to me, but then there's one time, even after poor Mr. Bloom died, I got his mail for a few days afterwards. And then I started getting stuff from Happy Valley Cemetery, but I didn't want to get a place there yet.
Oh.
This landlady is more interesting about her trying of the cemetery trying to sell her a plot before she's ready. Can we get a movie about Happy Valley Cemetery?
Oh, and I was getting the name wrong. It was Tony at the bar because Tom was the other guy.
Okay.
Because Tom is dating Kathy, who is pregnant, and that was another part where like it was kind of like the abortion thing, where like they showed Kathy like realistically not knowing who to go to about being pregnant, and so like she goes to a teacher that she thinks she can trust and all this stuff. So like it was another thing showing like the struggles of like getting pregnant early and like not knowing how to tell the boyfriend, not knowing how to tell your parents and all this stuff. But again, too little.
Yeah, I mean, there is a couple of nice scenes with her and then Professor Parker, I think is her first name was Molly or something or whatever. I'm just going to call
Julie
her
Parker.
I was going to say Peter Parker.
Julie Parker. Peter Parker's mom. It was May Parker. This is his aunt. No, oh wait. She gets killed, and that's why Peter Parker has no parents. It was Peter Parker's son.
It wasn't.
His mom.
It wasn't
Peter
the
Parker's son.
plane crash, and then it wasn't the time where they got brought back as clones and then went evil again, or it wasn't the other time.
It was the time Peter Parker's mom got killed in college before she met his dad.
But not the time. Spider-Man is weird.
So Spider-Man went to the drive-in, and this was another great a bad blowjob pun. Yeah, that was weird. A dude drives up to the ticket office at the drive-in. Says, "Are these movies any good?" The ticket person says, "Oh, the second one's all right." He goes, then how come nobody's here? And a girl pops up from giving him a blowjob and says, "Because they suck." And then she wipes her mouth off. Oh.
It's like, is this actually a porno? And they just cut out all the porn, and that's why it's so short.
It was made by someone who worked at Troma during their early like sexploitation movies. So,
but this wasn't the only scene where it felt like a porno was about to start or had just ended.
Actually, that's what shocked me, was that this was distributed by Troma, and it was directed by someone who worked for Troma, and it was an 80s slasher movie. There was no nudity in this.
No nudity whatsoever.
And I was actually shocked by that. That was actually kind of interesting choice.
Maybe the nudity is in the director's cut, or it's in the extended cut, just like Lord of the Rings.
A bunch of scenes of just naked women walking around in the background.
In New Zealand.
Well, I don't even know who those people. Which people was that? Just random people, so they could get a bad blowjob pun in?
I think it might have been that just for that joke.
Yeah, because then we show Tom and Kathy at the drive-in, and there's a noise, so Tom gets out to check something, and Kathy gets worried about him after a while and goes to find him. And you think that Tom's going to get killed, but oh no, he's an asshole man, so he's going to live. And she goes out and gets her throat slit because she's the pregnant girl.
Yeah, this doesn't really follow any of the real rules of slasher movies, quote unquote rules of slasher movies for anyone that's seen Scream. So it's like, well, I mean, I kind of got to hand it to it because a lot of like stuff like towards the end we'll get to later is like, well, I didn't actually expect that to happen. So good on you, movie.
Well, that's true, because even this scene, you expected her to go out and find the dude and sit there and scream.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the typical. It's the dude goes to check a noise, he gets killed, and we actually see it, happy and everything. And then the girl goes to check on the boyfriend because he's not coming back, and then she finds the body. So actually, I agree. You got to give it to him for like subverting that. Like, if this were any other 80s horror movie, it would have been the dude that got killed there.
Also, I want to point out that this kind of reminded me of like the whole unknown pregnancy scare subplot. It's like, oh, is this going to turn into Grease?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if
I'm not pregnant.
I was hoping that John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John were going to come out and just start singing.
You're the one that I want.
Oh, you are the one that I want.
This was interesting, was that when she got killed, somehow he was still out there. She gets killed, and the killer has time to put her back in the front seat of the car, and he gets in the back seat and thinks she's just being quiet.
Yeah, that was really funny. It was just like, oh, well, so then she's got like a throat slash or something, not saying anything. He's like, well, fine, Kathy.
And then we got to go into more dialogue. Seriously, like, I'm going to recommend this movie at the end just so people can hear all this dialogue, because I'm not doing it justice. You hear what happened to Kathy last night? She got killed at the drive-in. No shit. What was playing? Again, nobody cares that people are dying. So maybe they didn't care that Dorian was gone. They're like, someone died again. Screw it. Well, because then Dorian was Tony's girlfriend, so now he can get with that other chick and not feel guilty about it. Denise, yeah, he can get with Denise.
But I want to talk about, so they're back at the drive-in. Like at one point, he's not talking to her. Then he gets in the driver's seat and starts to drive off. Why does he find out that she's been there dead? Did they get all the way?
Dead because they cut to the next morning. It's spread throughout the school that she's dead. So
I know, but in my head,
it's just
I like to imagine he just drives off.
Why are you so quiet? God, what did I do?
They get all the way back to her dorm room or something. Tries to it was like a bizarre Weekend at Bernie's thing where she is
dead drunk.
Exactly.
Well, so we have all that going on, and then we get back to Miss Parker's storyline. The main storyline that is the 65-minute movie. And now she's starting to get suspicious of her boyfriend Mark, Scott Mayo. And so because her friend is all like, oh, he knew the last girl that got murdered here because he was seeing her. And she's like, wait, he didn't say that he was seeing her, or even said that he didn't really know her that well or something.
Yeah, that was their friend, the Parker's best friend named Cynthia.
Yeah. And so she finally starts getting suspicious, and she's like, oh, I got a spare key. We don't know where she got this spare key from, but I'm going to go check out his apartment at lunch. And so she's there
with Cynthia. So Cynthia's kind of the lookout, and they're trying to go into Scott Mayo's apartment too.
And Mark is looking for her, Miss Parker. So he's told that she went to the priest guy, and he's like, no, she's not here, and she left or whatever. And he's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go home for lunch. Tension.
Yeah, except we don't really let the tension build, because the next scene we see is just he gets home and then she's there and then she leaves before he sees her. I guess if you want to build suspense, you need to do it in a different way, not to go into the sidetrack. But since we're already going long anyway, I'll just go ahead and talk about the Alfred Hitchcock way of suspense. The classic example that he would talk about was that two people are in a room talking about baseball, and then then the room explodes. Okay, well, that's a surprise, but that's not necessarily suspense. Let's say you have two people in a room talking about baseball, and the camera slides down. You see that there's a bomb under the table that's ticking, and that's going to go off. That makes more suspense in a sense, because it creates more drama for something the audience knows, but the characters don't. So I'd say you could just say, I'm going to go home for lunch. Then she's searching, and then it just cuts to him driving, and would intercut back and forth to create more suspense there.
Yeah, they didn't intercut enough. They did a little bit, because she is searching and that he's on his way home, and then they cut to her searching. But I agree that they probably should have had some sort of other cuts in there. The next cut was him pulling up and her friend pulling away. And then she gets out of the apartment and hides in the closet across the way or something like that. And she had found, and then to add to the red herring, she found a bunch of newspaper clippings about the murders in the town.
Yeah, it's dramatic newspaper clippings that were hidden in a bureau or something that she had to get open with a letter opener.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the photographer guy that just shows up and then he's never seen again?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about him because he never shows up again.
So right as she's trying to get into this apartment, there's some other guy in a blue shirt wearing a camera, a still photograph camera on his, kind of around his neck. And he walks in and is like, oh, hey, so you're like, are you living there? Oh, no, I'm just visiting. I gotta get in. He's like, oh, okay, cool. Actually, I'm a photographer, and this is part of my photography class assignment. Can I take a picture of you?
Well, and he must have lived there, too, because he knew Mark. He's like, I don't think Mark is here.
Yeah.
So it's it was really random. It's I think that was supposed to build tension too. It was a poor attempt, because there's no other reason for that to exist other than her almost getting caught by someone sneaking into his apartment.
There was another opportunity. So this movie tried, it just, I guess, didn't execute it very well. So.
Yeah. There was I see, and like I said, I did read a few reviews of this just while I was researching some of it, and too many people said they didn't really try in this movie, and I have to beg to differ on that, because I really think, like you said, They didn't execute well, but they tried. They tried to give us red herrings. They tried to give us tension in this scene. It just didn't amount to much, and it wasn't completely well done. It was more like, who the hell is this camera guy? And what did that scene have to do with anything? But thinking on it, well, she was afraid she was going to get caught there because she's trying to get in a limited amount of time, and he's stalling her, So it just felt out of place, though. But then this is where the movie ratchets up a notch, because my next notes are just Miss Parker's Cynthia's found dead in the closet, woman gutted in the bathroom, Denise is stabbed in the mouth. Like
Denise is stabbed in the mouth was the best part, because there's been some gore, there's been some blood coming out of places, coming out of when the person is stabbed in the torso or whatever. There's been blood, but then when the woman is stabbed in the mouth, it's just so fast. It's like you see a knife come out towards the camera, and it cuts to knife going into Denise's nose, then it cuts away to another scene. There's no blood or gore or anything. I don't know why for that scene they didn't. I guess maybe they're running out of fake blood for the day or something.
It was all used up. I will have to say that if you listen to our past episode, Dead Time, this is a 1984 movie. And the gore effects, even as cheap as they were, looked so much better than Dead Time that was made in 2012 and all done digitally. Mm-hmm. And always use practical in horror movies, people.
Always do fake blood as best as you can, because you can make fake blood pretty easily out of syrup and food coloring, and it'll give a nice effect.
Yeah, so fast forwarding on, Miss Parker, everyone's dead. Miss Parker thinks it's Mark still because of finding all those newspaper clippings. So she's going to Priest Jansen, the head priest guy.
Of course, Mark comes in. He's like, "Oh, there's something I gotta tell you. It's okay. It's not what you think." And then she hits Mark with a vase or something, knocks him out, and then she runs away to go to Father Jansen because of all the killings and stuff. The school's been shut down, so then it looks like it's just her and Father Jansen are in the building. But I was kind of hoping she was just gonna kill Mark right there, like the scene in The Incredible Mr. Ripley with the ashtray, just murder him right there.
Movie over.
That'd be a very different movie.
Finding out that he's not the killer, now she's a killer.
That's what I was thinking. What if she was the killer the whole time? It's all been some con. I don't care if the twist doesn't make any sense.
Well, I put down that Father Jensen always seems suspicious when we cut to him, and he goes, "It just turns out he had a lot of porn." Because she's going to Father Jansen and she calls him or something, so he knows that she's coming. So he's putting his porn in his drawer and stuff. and then I thought, oh wait, he can also walk, and he has a knife in his crucifix.
Surprise! Yeah, that was weird.
And so she goes, and our protagonist, again, this movie hates women so much that even the main protagonist, the final girl, isn't even the final girl. It's a final boy because Mark survives. Technically. I think he survives. We assume he does.
I assume he survives too,
But she goes and finds out that Jansen's the killer, and he chases her around the school with a crucifix knife and kills her in a freight elevator.
Yeah, and then stabs her in the back. And then kind of tries and go up the spine, I guess. But with a knife like he was, you think it'd be harder to go when, there's bone and other stuff. But you know what? Honestly, who cares?
I don't know. But you find out that, surprise, Father Jansen is really William Graham from the beginning of the movie.
That you forgot about, because despite this movie being under 90 minutes, it felt like a kind of a long sit.
And this was the other thing and I got all this information from apparently Haynes sat down, I don't know when this was, and talked about his experiences on this movie. And he said that another one of the things, on top of adding some scenes with the college students, they also suggested adding the bookend of the mental ward so that it's a escaped mental patient, so that he wouldn't offend religious people by having it be an actual priest doing the killing. So in his original movie, it actually was just a priest killing people.
Okay, I could see that.
So
it did seem, I could see that tacked on. and endings, bookends. I thought he was trying to go for a little bit like the very ending of Psycho, which is kind of looking at Norman Bates as he talks to himself or something.
Yeah, what was he screaming? Something about women.
All those women are poisoning me, blah, 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 blah.
I hate women.
Yep.
But
so Kyle, what do you take away from this movie?
not a lot. Other than it's a good bad movie. I unapologetically love 80s slasher movies of all sorts, even the bad ones. And I don't know, that was my thing to go to when I was really young, was when I was like 6 or 7, you know.
Yeah, you had I'm kind of concerned about your childhood now. I did not know this.
No, my mother tells everyone all the time that when I was in grade school, she would always find me, I couldn't sleep at night. So like she would come down in the middle of the night and I would be downstairs in the living room with all of the lights off watching a scary movie just in the middle of the night.
Nice.
So this is the kind of stuff that I gravitated towards when I was younger. And I have like just a soft spot for old 80s slasher flicks and horror, just 80s horror in general. So, you know, when the wheel spins 80s horror, I'm always going to get excited. and this is a bad one. And yeah, again, I got to reiterate, this movie hates women, but then again, a lot of horror movies do. So, but it was still such a fun movie because of the really bad dialogue. It just was so, I found it entertaining and entertainingly bad.
Yeah, I think this movie might be okay to watch with your friends when you're all just kind of joking around riffing it, because it's not too long. And even if it is kind of boring at some points, there's still plenty of weird material, like this, like the bar scene, or just like, you know, Denise's hair, or just some other things. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it's more of a maybe for me.
Yeah, as a movie, like just straight up as a movie, I'm not gonna super recommend this. If you're like me and you're weird and you just love all 80s horror, I would seek it out on Amazon Prime, because like you said, it's a short movie. Even when he had to extend it, it was still only 118 minutes long.
78 minutes.
70, yeah, that was way longer. No, it was 78 minutes long. Yeah, he didn't even make the 80-minute cutoff that the producers wanted. So, yeah, so it's a really short movie. And that's just, like I said, the stuff that he added with the college students, that makes it so much more fun to watch. So, yeah, I'd recommend it for anybody who wants to watch that kind of a movie.
Now we're going to debut a new segment we want to do at the end of every show called Double Feature, where basically we recommend a movie that could kind of go as a good double feature, or at least try and it would kind of exemplify some of the, or fix some of the flaws in this movie. Another movie that does a little bit of the same thing, but kind of does it better. So, Kyle, what would your double feature be with Splatter University?
Okay, I went a little different route.
Okay.
As in, it might not have done it better, but I went with just a double feature that's very similar, that is actually a movie that I genuinely just love this one was just kind of entertainingly bad. And like the movie I'm going to recommend, I really love. I've watched it a few times. It's called Pieces from 1982.
I have not heard of this film.
It is centered around a college like this one. And there's someone going around killing the women of the college like this one. And in this one, it's a kid. It was a guy who, as a kid, he got his nudie jigsaw puzzle taken away from him by his mother. So now, as an adult, he's killing the women in this college with a chainsaw, and he's trying to construct like a perfect jigsaw body. So he's stitching all the pieces together, and the kills are a little better. So it does do that a little better. And then also this has one of my favorite acting couples, Christopher and Linda Day George. Are you familiar with Christopher George and Linda Day George?
I am not.
Okay, they were an acting couple mostly from the 70s, and they did this movie together. They were also in Day of the Animals together. Yeah. You've seen Day of the Animals? Then you know about the shirtless Leslie Nielsen wrestling a bear.
Yes. That scene is... There's a great Riff Tracks commentary for Day of the Animals.
And it's so bad because he's pissed off at the bear because he interrupted interrupted him trying to rape a woman.
Yeah, that was a very angry Leslie Nielsen just throughout that film. It felt really weird.
And for those of you that don't know, before Airplane, Leslie Nielsen was a serious actor. Like he only did dramas and stuff. And it was Airplane where they found his comedy niche. And then from then on, he was pigeonholed. So yeah, before that, he did all these, and this was a weird role too, Day of the Animals. But then Christopher George was also in a movie called Grizzly. That was another great.
I have also seen The Grizzly.
So you know Christopher George. He's the main guy in both of these. And his wife was then, I saw her recently in a movie I saw in Svengoolie called Ants. It was a 1977 TV movie about like this seaside hotel that gets overrun by killer ants. And it stars Linda Day George, and Bernie Casey from Revenge of the Nerds is in it. And Myrna Loy, yes, that 1920s, 1930s actress Myrna Loy.
Nice. Hey, job to job.
And Brian Dennehy and Suzanne Summers.
Huh.
So, and that was another bad one I enjoyed.
That is a weird combination.
But regardless, so back to Pieces. It's basically, I went with a double feature that is two, killers killing women on a campus kind of movie. And like the killer twist at the end is very similar too. So I went with two movies that were like very similar in plot and twist and what's going on in the movie. So, maybe Pieces isn't a masterpiece, but that's one that I genuinely love. I do like to go back to that movie.
Okay, so when we spin, I guess we should just keep doing horror because so far it's gotten some of the best bizarreness. So we'll do one more horror movie just to see where it goes. So you can go ahead and do that while I talk about my recommendation for a double feature. See, I'm not sure how I necessarily feel about Splatter University. I wouldn't necessarily call it good. I didn't really enjoy it in the same way that you did. But I guess I find slashers as a genre or subgenre or whatever kind of interesting because, there's slashers and there's sort of murder mystery movies like Psycho, which wasn't necessarily a slasher. But then, slasher was kind of first popularized later in 1978 with Halloween, and then further popularized with something like Friday the 13th in 1980. But at the same time, then there was 1974, we have Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But then at the same...
Which is still, to this day, a terrifying movie.
And what's interesting about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and both Halloween, there is very little gore in both of those films, which I find very interesting.
And people remember Texas Chainsaw Massacre being very gory, but it's because it was so well crafted that you think you see a lot of gore.
And it's very well edited, especially in the family dinner scene. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly which scene I'm talking about. Yes. So I'm going to go a little earlier than that. Just go kind of something after Psycho, but before both of those. I'm going to go with Peeping Tom. So it has kind of the slasher movie-like vibe where it's a lot of subjective camera you see. It's like the killer's perspective, stabbing someone, similar to that. But it's kind of interesting because it takes that to a weirder level in the sense because the killer is actually filming everything. So it's a point of view shot, but you're actually seeing, but you also know who the dude holding the camera is. So you actually see the killer holding the camera, go up to someone, cut to the point of view shot of the camera he's holding, and then stabbing someone. So it's unique in that one, and it's from, like 63, I think. So I'd recommend Peeping Tom because it's a different, weirder one that kind of hasn't been done in the slasher genre while still having the same elements. It's almost like it's more meta in the slasher genre before the slasher genre was really a thing.
Okay.
So I'd recommend Peeping Tom.
That is actually in my my hole for viewing. It's one that I haven't seen yet that I've meant to see. I've meant to try and seek out, but I'm not even sure that. I think I've looked for that one before, and I don't know if it's really available anymore. Because isn't that one also that kind of? Am I thinking wrong that one was also kind of banned for what it was?
It might have made the UK video nasties list.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. That's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole podcast in itself right there.
So what's the next movie here, Kyle?
Okay, so we're gonna go for one more horror movie, and we got Redneck Zombies from 1989. It's a comedy horror, and you can watch this on Amazon Prime, or if you don't have any streaming services, you can watch it on Tubi TV for free.
What's the description here?
A barrel of radioactive waste is lost out in the woods. Some demented rednecks find it and use it as part of their still. Everybody who drinks from the liquor they produced turns into a zombie.
Huh.
And like the picture in the background here, there's actually, it says Troma on the beer mug. So this is another Troma movie.
Another Troma film. Okay, I could go with that.
All right. This sounds interesting. So we'll go you know what? I know that these come out ruining the magic of the moment here, or the podcast, but these go out way later. But it is almost October right now.
Yeah, as of this recording.
If we get a couple of horror movies in right now, that'll be great. People might not hear these till December, but...
But yeah, redneck zombies. And if you're gonna go in Troma, especially, later 80s Troma up to today, even, they're known for a very specific brand of kind of gross out comedy horror humor.
Yeah.
So
and very over the top gore and
stuff like the Toxic Avenger series, or if you want something a bit more recent, I'd recommend Poultrygeist: Night of the Chicken Dead.
I've heard of that one.
That one's interesting and pretty good. So that about wraps it up for this episode. Kyle, do you have any final words that you'd like to say?
No, I think that's it for now. And until next time.
Until next time, I'm still Noah Saturn.
And sometimes I'm Kyle, but we're not sure. I could be the killer.
Yeah, he wants me to put the lotion on its skin. Goodbye, everybody.